ready.
Planning and Development, May 15. Counselor Andrus?
Here.
Counselor Gwaltney?
Here.
Counselor Wolverton?
Here.
Counselor Sims? And Counselor Nelms?
Here.
So Sims left, right?
Yes, you did good.
So you still have a quorum, you got 4.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, everybody, I will begin with a motion to dismiss the reading and approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was March 20th.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Councilor March 20th, yeah.
I double checked it to make sure, because that didn't sound right.
Thank you, I know, right? Okay, so I have a motion from Counselor Nelms and a second from Counselor Gwaltney. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes 4-0. Okay, we have no old business, so new business 070523, request for a resolution in favor of the Red Mountain Cut Foundation and Jefferson County Commission TAP grant request, brought to us by Bryson Stevens and myself. I can't wait for you guys to hear about this. I first heard about this project, I think it was during COVID when you presented to the Jefferson County Coalition. And were you there for that? It was at Vulcan. I know we were all wearing face masks. Yeah, and we were all socially distanced. I know that's how long it's been. But I really appreciate the work that he has done on this project. And then President Wyatt and Cale Smith and I met with him last week. This just to give you just to let you know, we are this is a regional cooperation project, and Mountain Brook has passed a resolution in favor of last week. So Bryson's asking the same of us, and I'm gonna let him introduce the project and answer any questions.
Great, thank y'all for having me today and giving me a little bit of time.
You want to sign this?
Yes.
Just whatever, doesn't matter.
Sure. I'll do it when I'm.
That's fine.
All right. So my name is Bryson Stevens. I am chairman of EBSCO Industries here in Birmingham, and I got involved in this project in 2014-2015 timeframe when an ex-employee of EBSCO actually commented to a family member that the cut looked pretty bad, as if we were responsible for maintaining it.
But we get those comments too.
I'm familiar with that.
But I was pretty quickly, we hooked up with Claude Nielsen, who at the time was working on a project he was calling Gateways. And he was trying to get some money out of Montgomery to clean up major gateways or arteries in and out of the central business district. And so he made a yeoman's effort for about a year or two, and Montgomery was not cooperative, so he didn't get any money, and that kind of died on the vine. And but the idea of the cut, really, this was the first time I had thought about it in any seriousness since I probably was there on a field trip in the late 70s or early 80s and went out to the Red Mountain Museum and walked on the walkway. And so I started thinking about it, and ultimately decided that I wanted to do something about it. And so my first meeting was with David Faulkner, and I went to school together, and he got Jabbo and Director Cooper and DeJarvis Leonard, and we asked AlDOT, because it is their right-of-way, whether or not if we wanted to do something on the cut to clean it up, to improve it in any way, would they stop us? That was the first question of the day, and they fortunately said, no, we won't stop you. We won't give you any money, we won't help you, but we will not stop you. And that was fine. That was really all I needed to get started. And so in 2018, we signed a planning agreement with Goodwin Mills Kaywood to do a master plan and feasibility study, and really kind of looked at the whole neighborhood surrounding the cut. So Jennifer's correct. My request here today is for a letter of support or a resolution of support in favor of a TAP grant application that will be made by Jefferson County with the support and blessing of the city of Birmingham, because it's their street. But it is also, I think, noted that this street, if improved, and I'll show you some pictures of the improvements, if improved, would be a benefit to the citizens of both Homewood and Mountain Brook. And so that's why she mentioned that I had presented to Mountain Brook, and they are supportive of it because as it stands today, 21st Avenue South or Diaper Row is not really pedestrian friendly. And as a connector, it can be improved, certainly. So I'm going to kind of give you what I call kind of the grand vision, which is long-term. It is an idea. It is one possibility for what we can do in the cut. And then I'll specifically hone in on the 21st Avenue, which is narrowly what the request is, the letter of support, what we're asking for today. So I'm going to kind of just orient everybody on the space, and then I'll talk about the history of the cut, and then I'll go into what our objectives are as a foundation, and then I'll get to the improvements that we want to make. So I'm assuming that everybody in this room knows exactly where the cut is. So if you back out kind of bird's eye view, 30,000 feet, the cut sits right in the middle of the greater Birmingham area. Our city is bifurcated by Red Mountain from the northeast to the southwest. And as our city grew and the settlements on the south side of the mountain grew, Red Mountain really became a transportation problem. I believe Homewood was incorporated in 1926, Mount Brook in 42, Vestavia in 1950, Hoover in 1967. And in the 50s and 60s, as the neighborhoods south of the mountain were growing and people were commuting to get to businesses in Jones Valley, getting over Red Mountain was a problem. And those commutes had gotten to be quite long. My grandfather lived on Cherokee Road in the 50s, and it would take him 45 minutes to get from Cherokee Road to First Avenue North, where EBSCO's headquarters was. And so the solutions for this transportation problem were several. They looked at tunneling, they looked at doing the cut, ultimately decided to do the cut, but it really sits right in the middle of our city, and I just wanted to share that map with you to illustrate that. This is the Red Rock Trails Master Plan. You can see that the trail systems typically follow the path of least resistance, or the valleys, and the cut sits right in between Red Mountain Park and Ruffner Park on Red Mountain, in between the Jones and Shades Creek corridors. This is a zoomed-in version of that map that illustrates not only the location of where the cut sits, but also the community assets that are really within a stone's throw of the cut. You have the botanical gardens, you have the zoo, you have downtown Homewood, English Village, Highland Avenue, 5 Points South, UAB, and next slide, please. And if you were to walk to or from the cut, it's a 10 to 15 minute walk to any of those community assets. But you would not walk there today because it's inaccessible, and many of the feeder roads, i.e. 21st Avenue South, are not pedestrian friendly. So, background. It was built in the 60s for $22 million, which today would probably be over $1 billion, but amazingly they built it for just over $20 million. It opened in 1970 to handle about 32,000 cars per day. And the Red Mountain Museum, which was located on the north slope, very near where today's St. Rose Academy is, on 22nd Street South, the Red Mountain Museum opened in 1977. And as part of the museum, there was a walkway on the eastern side. The first bench is what I call it. First bench of the eastern side. You can see it there, and it dead-ended, but it was a self-guided walkway where you could go out and read educational exhibits and learn about Earth's history, the geology, learn about Birmingham's history, Alabama's history. You could see the Big Red Seam, and then of course there was the museum there on the north slope. And you can toggle through these fairly quickly, just some images. These were all on 35 millimeter slides and storage on in the attic of the McWane Center, and we digitized them. You can hold there. And in 1987, the National Park Service gave it a national natural landmark designation for its geological significance. And so its heyday was really 70s, 80s, and by the early 90s, there was a push from the Arrington administration to move the Science Museum to Jones Valley, to downtown. And that was, I think, motivated, I'm sure, for several reasons. One, to improve activity in downtown, but also because the site on the northern slope of Red Mountain was not ideal. There were parking limitations. The buildings had gotten old. They were small, and it was either time for a refresh at that site on the north slope, or let's move it. And the decision was made to move it, and the McWane Center is fantastic, and I think, frankly, it was probably the right decision to make. Unfortunately, the trade-off was we got the McWane Center, which was great, a positive. The downside is that that location and the cut itself lost its on-site manager. There were no longer employees going to work there. There was no one cutting the grass. There was no one cleaning up the graffiti. There was no one picking up the trash. And over the last 25, 30 years, Mother Nature has done her thing, and not throwing stones at AlDOT, but AlDOT has done their thing. And AlDOT's, they were very clear with me, and I'm sure y'all have had interactions with AlDOT. AlDOT's mission is to build roads and bridges, and maintaining their right-of-ways and cleaning. Not all the time. I'm trying to be diplomatic up here. But anyway, they're not, into landscaping their right-of-ways and taking care of their right-of-ways and going out and picking up trash on a regular basis, which is why we have things like Adopt a Mile, and we have good citizens that get out and do these cleanups. Because why it's important for us to put a good our best face forward to have, an attractive neighborhood and community. And if somebody doesn't get out there and pick it up every once in a while, then it's going to get trashy. That's all there is to it. So that's what happened, and it happened for 25 years. So the objectives of our foundation, why did we really get into this? First, we wanted to redevelop the space. Somebody said to me that, any town can have an aquarium. Huntsville can have an aquarium, Chattanooga can have an aquarium, Memphis can have an aquarium, but those towns cannot have the Red Mountain Cut. That is a special place that is unique to Birmingham, and so we want to invest in it, and you can kind of toggle through these animations fairly quickly. Invest in it for economic development. Why? Because quality of life matters. When somebody graduates from UAB's medical school or undergrad school and they're deciding what to do next in life, we want them to choose or Samford or Birmingham Southern or Miles. They have a choice to make as to where they go get a job, where they want to live, where they want to build a life, a career, and a family. And so having quality outdoor recreation assets, such as our parks and our trail systems, are important to building quality of life in our overall community for economic development. A connection, a bridge between downtown and over the mountain. It would connect the Red Rock Trail systems on both sides of Red Mountain to bring back the educational component that was frankly lost when the Red Mountain Museum and the walkway closed. There are a lot of fossils and artifacts that are in storage at the McWane Center, but it's not the same as being there, being out in that space and being face to face with that rock and experiencing it, in real time. And then an aesthetic, we wanted to design something that spoke to the future of our city. Sustainability, and you can talk we're thinking about this for the long term. Whatever we build, we want to take care of. We're raising money privately. What I am telling donors is that 20 cents on every dollar that you give us is going into an endowment. And that endowment will help us open on day one with money in the bank so that we are financially stable and we can take care of what we build. And then we're going to design it for low maintenance. I'm telling people to think of this as a rotary trail on steroids. This is not going to have a museum, there's not going to be any buildings, there's not going to be any full-time employees, there will be a volunteer Friends of the Cut group, but we're trying to keep our maintenance and overhead low, and then we have a 501c3 which the plan or the idea, like I said, this is an idea, is for us to manage it for the long term. So the improvements, the first improvement we made was cleaning off the vegetation before the World Games. And so as some of you may know, Claude Nielsen, who I mentioned earlier, who I connected with like 8 years ago, he quickly, pre-World Games, got a group together and raised some money from UAB, Jefferson County, and I think a few other sources. And they cleaned up street level, made some street level improvements of some major arteries in and around downtown. And that was great work. And in fact, I think they have a 3-year contract to kind of continue that maintenance of picking up trash and cutting the grass in and around a number of the major intersections and arteries. We took care of the vertical walls. The vertical walls, as I mentioned, are in ALDOT right-of-way. They are inside the highway fencing. And so we contracted with Gray's Tree Service, and not only did they take 25 years of vegetation, but there was a group of homeless that had built a camp up on the second bench, and they removed 2 or 3 full truckloads of trash because that group was basically living there at night, and then they would walk down into downtown and get food and come back up, and then, you know, there's no facilities there, right? So it just, it got really trashy. So that was our first improvement. To give you some sense of perspective, if you don't mind going back, that I love pointing this out, that little dot there on the bottom right photograph is one of the Gray's Tree Service workers rappelling off the side with a chainsaw in his hand. And so that just puts into perspective why it costs $500,000. I mean, it's a big space. And if you don't go out there and you haven't really kind of experienced it, sometimes we forget it because we drive by and it takes about 19 seconds to drive by it, right? But it is a big space, and there were 20 and 30-year-old full-size trees that they had to remove. The ongoing, now that all of that work has been done, if we continue, the ongoing maintenance would be about $60,000 a year. So it was a big one-time cleanup that, if it's followed up on, will be less expensive to maintain it. Okay. So the improvements, the 2 I'll mention, the one I'm here about tonight is the 21st Avenue or Diaper Row. That's kind of what I call phase 1 or our project, our first project. The cut trail, I'll talk about that. That's through the cut. That's a bigger project. It's going to take a long time and a lot more money. And then the yellow line is really just to highlight the coming improvements on 18th Street, which are coming down to this intersection where the Walgreens and the Board of Education and Vulcan Park are. And so I'm completely biased, but I think the improvements on Diaper Row, if they could be married up with the improvements that are being made on 18th Street and what y'all are doing coming up from downtown Homewood, we have an opportunity to really improve that intersection. I know y'all have already got the right turn lane coming off Valley. That's huge. But, I mean, clearly we need crosswalks, and that whole intersection needs a little attention. 21st Avenue South. We can go to the next one. Yeah, I'm assuming all of you are familiar with it. It's kind of a wide street. People generally drive over the speed limit. There's no sidewalk. There's no bike lane. Not very pedestrian friendly. However, I didn't really fully appreciate this until I pulled out the Google map. And there's 350 single-family homes within 500 feet of Diaper Row. And this is really, it's a Birmingham neighborhood, but it's a neighborhood. And those folks are definitely directly paying the price for 21st Avenue not being pedestrian friendly. But then also citizens of Homewood and Mountain Brook are paying a price because it's not a good connector to get from one to the other. If, you know, somebody living near English Village wanted to ride a bicycle, not even a half a mile, to come to a restaurant in downtown Homewood, you're taking your life into your own hands by going down 21st Avenue South. So it's not very welcoming. And so if I'm sitting there making a decision, do I walk to Homewood or do I ride a bike to Homewood? Maybe I'll just go eat in English Village. Or maybe I'll walk down to Mount Brook Village instead, because there's a nice sidewalk going all the way down by the zoo. So, I mean, people think about that. And right now, Diaper Row is friction. if you're a pedestrian or a bicyclist, it's friction. Next one. So what we want to do is we want to put in a new sidewalk, we want to put in a bike lane, we want to put in some crosswalks. There's not one crosswalk on Diaper Road today. And we basically want to make it safer and more approachable so that people can use it. These are preliminary sketches done by GMC, and so this may change. We've talked about maybe moving the bike lane to the south side, so when you look at these, don't think this is permanent. If we win our TAP grant, we'll have probably a year to work on design and get input from the neighborhood and really fine tune it, but this is just conceptual. All right, so the next one, obviously the area underneath Highway 280, and then the next one, and that just, again, another look of what we want to do. So that's really, I mean, I could stop right there and just say, you know, I would hope that the city of Homewood would support Jefferson County's TAP grant application for improvement on this street. And the reason that Birmingham is not applying is because they have an active TAP. And if you've got an active TAP, you can't apply for another one. We went to Jefferson County. We said, do you guys have a TAP application? They said no. We said, are y'all gonna make one? They said no. We don't really do a whole lot of sidewalks. We said, would you apply with us in the city of Birmingham? And they said yes. And so our foundation is going to put up the 20% match. And then we'll see if we win. And then if we win, we'll decide what we want to try to build. And then we'll work on paying for it if the TAP doesn't cover it all, which it probably won't. But that is, that's the plan on 21st Avenue South. And so I'll pause for a second, and then I can go to the cut trail.
Any questions, John?
Tyson, is there any desire to go back to the idea of classrooms coming up there and going along the cut and looking at the geology like I used to see back probably when you were a kid? Do you see that coming? Is there some desire to put something there that, you know, I know St. Rose has kind of taken over a lot of that. Is there any chance of creating some kind of opportunity for education along the cut?
Yes, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. Near St. Rose, where the Red Mountain Museum was Birmingham city land. And when they knocked the Red Mountain Museum down in 2003, they sold a little chunk of it to St. Rose, but they still own about 1/4 of an acre right there. And, but yes, is the answer to your question.
Any other questions about the 21st Avenue project? So that's his specific ask tonight, which is our support of that. And as you know, as I look at it, I used to live on 21st Avenue South, but as a runner, you know, I know the Birmingham Track Club goes down that road a lot. It is a very wide road with a lot of fast traffic, and there's tons of room to do something for pedestrians and for cyclists. And it ties directly into Homewood. I mean, it ties directly into Homewood, and it ties directly into Mountain Brook. And I just think it's a great project, and I'm just really so pleased that somebody's taking it on, and that the county sees value in being a part of it as well. But to get an idea of what the whole project looks like, would you show us?
Yes.
How it ties into.
So the cut trail. So this is the grand vision for what to do through the cut itself. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to build a pedestrian connector, a trail, ADA accessible, that would connect from 21st Avenue South on the south side, which is top right, to 22nd Street South, which is St. Rose is right down here on the north side, and incorporate a plaza that would have overlooks taking in Jones Valley and downtown Birmingham. And so what I'll do is I'll just kind of walk us along the cut trail from south to north. And so on the south side, we would have a gate entrance. The gate is kind of a nod to the mine entrances, which you can see out at Red Mountain Park. And so you would have an entry, and then you would almost immediately go onto columns. One of the biggest challenges of this design was getting it to be ADA accessible, because it had to be a 5-degree slope or less. And you've got the topography of the mountain, which is like this, but you gotta make a trail like that. So when it's not on grade in the middle of the cut, it's actually on column. And so this trail would be tucked up against the hillside on columns, and you can kind of see the shadow and the curve there. But it would be about 3 sidewalks wide, 14-foot wide, and you would rise along the trail up towards the first bench of the eastern wall of the cut, which is where the concrete sidewalk used to be, or it actually still is today. And we would bring back the educational component, so you could give yourself a self-guided tour. Like I said, we don't plan to have employees. I've been working with a couple of educators on trying to pull a team together to come up with a curriculum. I think there's a lot of opportunities for using technology. Everybody's got a smartphone. You could have QR codes with videos. There's a lot you could do on the education side. And there's a lot of stories to tell, not only Earth's history, not only our city's founding, but civic development. I mean, what was the impact that this had on the growth of Birmingham over the last 50 years? I think there's just a lot of educational opportunity here. And so as you continue north, you would come off grade and go back on column as you kind of made the sweeping turn around to the plaza. And we would want to light it up at night. I mentioned earlier that when the highway was opened in 1970, it was designed to handle 32,000 cars today. Today, it handles 94,000 cars a day, so triple what it was originally designed for. The only punch through Red Mountain that handles a greater vehicle traffic count is I-65, which is at about 120,000 cars a day. So at 95,000 cars a day, this is a very visible space, not only for our citizens, but for visitors. And in fact, when Ron Kitchens was the head of the BBA, I visited with him and talked to him about this. And he said, you know, it's interesting, we had a site selection team in here about a month ago, and they went to lunch in Homewood. They drove through the cut from the BBA offices in downtown into Homewood, had lunch, and drove back. And one of the questions they asked when they got back is who takes care of that space? Because at the time, it looked like crap, right? It was completely overgrown. There was, you know, clothes and trash hanging from the fences, and so that was his question: who takes care of that? Ron didn't have a good answer at that time. But anyway, this is a very central, high-traffic, visible space. So the opportunity to do something impactful that really sends a positive message for us and others about our city, I think, is one that should not be overlooked. So as it comes around on the north side, the way it's currently designed or envisioned today is it comes off column and it goes onto a cable suspended system, so that kind of sweeping turn is suspended above the plaza. And this is just another view. Of course, the plaza is a place to gather. You could have a class out there. You could do a lot of things. The gate on the north side would connect with existing sidewalk infrastructure on 22nd Street, which takes you right down to the bottom of the hill, and you're on Highland Avenue, and you're at 5 Point South, and you're at where the old was it a Western or a Pig, and the Hot Fish Club, which is about to be completely redone by Daniel, and so you are right there. And just another view of the city, and next one, you know, kind of sunsets. And then I think that's it. But I'll answer any questions y'all have. That is the grand vision. I know what's going through your mind. He's crazy and it's going to cost way too much. And you're right, I am crazy and it's going to cost way too much. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do big things sometimes. So we'll see. This big vision will require a federal grant, a significant federal grant, and that will take years to accomplish. But we're starting small, and if we can get a sidewalk on Diaper Road, then we'll be going, you know? But that's it, yeah. I'll answer any questions y'all might have.
I appreciate it. I know you're putting money
I don't know how many people actually went up there. I actually have been around long enough to have been in a class that walked up there and got to do a field trip. So it's kind
I wanted to say
Kind of
one
bizarre.
quick thing.
Sure.
You remember that when we saw the map of the sidewalks and things, the walkability within the metro area
Yes.
50 years ago?
Yes.
Used to be so much better, and then it got so worse, and this got completely neglected and passed over, so I'm so glad that we're coming full circle where we're realizing spaces that we can utilize, and 20 Diaper Road is perfect
Yeah.
for that.
And speaking to that directly, I can't tell you how many of these, RPC things that I've gone to where they put the map out and said, what do we need, And every time, I'm like, 21st Avenue South, we need 21st Avenue South, English Village to Homewood, Vulcan,
And green
this
spaces,
project.
yeah, green
Yes.
spaces have disappeared, and now we're bringing them back, and, areas like this, this is an exciting, ambitious
Yeah.
project, and I am disappointed that AlDOT doesn't see things like this that are gems that could be really developed.
Well, and to quote Bryson, this really anchors the other side of the mountain, you've got Vulcan, and this really anchors that, this makes a loop, right, between 21st Avenue South, you've got a loop, so you can, go from south side, up over the new improvements on 18th Street, or 22nd, or 20th, or whatever it is, and then go by Vulcan, and then go back down 21st. As you all know, I'm trying to build a bridge just a few miles from there, doing the
Just
same
get
thing.
Jennifer to
the
do it.
same- Yeah, exactly, so, my tiny little project, versus this, it's just,
Well, you're my inspiration, you're tenacious.
Well, it's only taken me
Thank you.
11 years so far. Still not there yet. But, anyway, any other questions? Okay.
I'd make a motion. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna clarify, so Jefferson County did apply for a TAP grant, or you guys
We're
have?
going to just do it at the end of this month, that's why
It's
we need
due
a
at the end
motion.
of
And that's for the sidewalk
That's for
work?
the 21st Avenue part, that's right,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
that's correct.
But
Yep.
we already have TAP grant that we're.
This is in
That's-
Birmingham, so we're the city of Homewood.
Correct,
So
yeah.
Birmingham they already have one that is, coming up 20th Street.
Right.
Bryson has partnered with the county, and so we are just passing a resolution in support of.
Sure, okay,
And that is due at the end of this month,
Sure.
which is why we need to move on it.
sure, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So I have a motion from Counselor Gwaltney.
Second.
Second from Counselor Wolverton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes 4-0. And so Bryson, that'll be in
Thank y'all so much.
the full council next week. And so then, if it passes, we will have that available with the mayor's signature
That night.
Next
that
week.
night.
That night.